Welcome to Israeli Frenemies, the only show you'll see coming out of Tel Aviv, Israel. It gets the right and the left together to beat out the most heated subject of the week. I'm Ari Fold, and I want to welcome my co-host, Amnon Morag. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Mikon. I'm happy to be here.
Fantastic. We've got an amazing show coming up. Let's get right to it.
The last week has seen a violent escalation in Gaza, ending in a ceasefire, in what I believe demonstrates the wholesale failure of the Netanyahu government to deliver for the people of southern Israel. We've seen this is the most right-wing government that one can imagine. We've seen bombastic rhetoric about going all the way, toppling the Hamas regime, killing Ismail Haniyeh within 24 hours. But at the end of the day, this government is negotiating ceasefires with Hamas. And the reason they are doing it is because they understand that the situation is much more complicated than their bombastic rhetoric. But at the same time, they are not willing to tell the Israeli public the truth about this situation. They are not willing to set out their strategic agenda regarding Gaza. At the end of the day, we're just tactically reacting to what the terror organizations in Gaza are doing, but we're not proactive strategically to change the situation on the ground. And today we can do it because Hamas is in its weakest position in history. We have relationships with the Arab states around us who have leverage over Hamas, and we're not using this opportunity to reach long-term quiet in Gaza.
All right, so I just want to correct a couple of things that you said. Number one, to blame this on Likud or a right-wing government is a little bit silly, considering that when the government was kicking out 10,000 Jews out of Gush Katif, and we're talking about a hopeful peace, coming up. I have loads of quotes here from people saying it's good for the security and it's good for the towns surrounding Gaza. We know that since the expulsion of Jews from Gush Katif, the security has gotten down to rock bottom. And to blame this on the right-wing government is a little bit silly. I don't understand how you could actually do that, but I want to talk a little bit about what you said about the peace process. Hamas, for example, the organization that was democratically voted in Gaza by 80% of the population, is an anti-Semitic, radical Islamic terrorist organization. Their charter actually doesn't talk about Zionists, it talks about Jews. It blames Jews for the French Revolution, for the Russian Revolution, and has a goal of annihilating the Jewish people. To make peace with such evil is in itself evil. It's to me, and then, Einstein said insanity is someone who keeps on doing the same thing over and over and expects different results. It should be clear, every time we give up land, every time we make a deal with the leaders of the Arabs, we end up having terrorism jumping 30%. Why would you want to go over that again?
Yeah, so first of all, you not talk about peace. I agree with you about Hamas. We will not have peace with Hamas, but we can have, just like your right-wing government just did.
It's also your right-wing government. You're in Israel.
It's also my right. It's your right wing. This is what they did. They came to a ceasefire with Hamas through Egypt. This is what I'm also suggesting, but not tactically doing this in reaction to what has happened. Why do we have to? Did we just remove restrictions, economic restrictions, as part of this ceasefire in reaction to the fact that they shot a mortar to a kindergarten? Why are we determined to demonstrate that we are the side that only understands power?
Well,
why shouldn't we remove these restrictions as part of a long-term quiet?
So I'll explain to you why. In 2005, when we left Gaza, 2 years, the borders were completely open. We've had tens of thousands, 20,000 plus rockets which are fired at civilian areas in Israel. The reason that there's a closure on some of the areas in Gaza, and by the way, I want to remind you that Gaza has another border. It's called Egypt, another Arab country. And the reason that we're very tight on the borders is because we don't want them getting more rockets and missiles than they already have. To open an open border when people have a goal of annihilating your people is suicide. Why would I want to take down those restrictions? Again, Gaza is not starving. There were 3 5-star hotels, 2 malls, and a water park that were opened up in Gaza in the times that we talked about this blockade. By the way, the water park was burned down by Hamas. But it's the restrictions are not about food and medicine. We just sent in tons of medicine. By the way, the electricity's been knocked out 3 to 4 times by Hamas. Not as we go in, put our lives in to fix the electricity. So it's, again, throw this on Israel is really, I'm sorry, it's not in touch with reality here.
I'm not throwing anything on Israel. I'm saying that our government cannot deliver for the security and quiet of the people in southern Israel.
But again, the security is a situation because of the left, not because of the right.
I want to correct you on a few things. First of all, the restrictions are not only in security, which I'm completely for. There are also economic. It's also economic sanctions.
They're exporting vegetables and fruit from Gaza.
I'm absolutely for, by the way. I think applying economic pressure is also okay, and also the use of force and deterrence. All of this is very important, but we shouldn't forget that the last thing that we have on our table, the last tool that we have, is also using this extremely comfortable situation that we have now, with strong relations with the Sunni Arab states, Hamas in a weak political and economic situation. We can use this to reach a quiet on our terms. And you know what? Why we're not doing it? We're not doing it, although there are recommendations of the security apparatus, because Netanyahu, Bennett, and Lieberman are in a race to the bottom for the right-wing electorate, and they fear appearing as lefties for their base more than they fear mortars on kindergartens.
You know, I think that Netanyahu's been in government for 12 years. I think the left have to get out of this fantasy. The right wing is not scared of the left. They can't win an election. So
they're scared of appearing as leftists more than scared of anything else.
Again, they're really not. The truth of the matter is that Netanyahu, I disagreed with the ceasefire, but I'm horrified by the ceasefire. But again, this proves that Netanyahu is more left than you are dictating. From the right side, you did hear opinions saying take over Gaza. And by the way, I agree with those opinions, because as long as there's a leadership in Gaza, voted in by the population, which believes in the annihilation of the Jewish people, there is nothing to talk about. I don't understand why anybody, by the way, and Chamberlain did this first in 1942, I think it was, when he made a pact with Hitler. You don't make peace with people who want to annihilate your people.
It was 1938. Anyway,
thank you. So wait, 1938. Thank you for the correction. 1938, the Munich Agreement. You don't make peace with people who want to annihilate your own people. It doesn't make any sense.
Definitely. And as I said, I'm not talking about peace. But you do make agreements, and Netanyahu just did. And what it proves is not that he's more left-wing than what I'm talking about.
What agreement did he make?
What?
What agreement did he make?
He made an agreement through Egypt. This time, not only with Hamas, possibly also with the Jihadist Islam.
What was the agreement? What were the terms of the agreement?
And you know what it proves? It doesn't prove that he's left-wing. It proves that he's only looking at the tactical situation and his political situation.
What?
And he doesn't present a long-term strategy.
I don't understand you. Again, you're holding two sides of the coin. On the one hand, you say he's so right-wing. On the other hand, you're saying he's using his tactical brain to stop it.
I'm not saying he's so right-wing. I'm saying he's so short-sighted when it comes to Gaza, because we cannot have a strategic
short-sighted, unlike
about how. I mean, because of the fact that it's Hamas, and I find them as appalling as you do, and so does the Israeli public. This is a complex situation. It's complex politically.
Why is it complex?
And because anything that he would do, you would say this is the same as the Munich Agreement.
I'm not.
And for that reason, Netanyahu cannot do anything that he. I actually do believe that he thinks. Yeah, he believes that he wants security for Israel, and I believe he understands that we need a long-term solution for Gaza. He just can't do it politically.
No, so again,
part of it is these comparisons with Munich.
Well, no, again, so I'm going to say it again. The Munich Agreement, the reason it was so bad is because we had a movement on the other side that saw the annihilation of the Jewish people as a value. So too Hamas. Why is there any difference? Can you explain what the difference between Hamas and Nazis are?
Please.
I'm asking you. Both wanted the Jews annihilated. What is the difference between them? Why do you think that we should make a deal with the Hamas and not with the Nazis?
Hamas, first of all, strong parts in it. They're anti-Semitic. They want us annihilated. They're in national conflict with us, but they are constrained by political and economic considerations.
So were the Nazis.
No.
It was a political movement.
No, the Munich Agreement was a deal with a power that did not have to give up almost anything.
That's right. It's just they weren't going to attack them. They weren't going to attack them.
You have here, what you are comparing to the Nazis is a terror organization that is also constrained by political and economic forces.
What is their goal? What is Hamas's goal?
First of all, their now official goal is also a state in 67 borders.
Do they recognize Israel?
Do I believe that they will not try?
Do they recognize Israel?
They do not recognize Israel.
So
but again, they are not my partner for peace.
Yes,
by the way, I don't even think that we have a strong enough partner for peace in the Palestinian Authority these days.
I agree with you. I think they're the same thing.
This still doesn't mean that we should not strive for quiet, for security, and for being able to politically separate in the future from the Palestinians.
I understand what you're saying, and I want peace just as much as you do. But to say that I'm going to give any kind of power to an organization that wants you dead in the hope of some false peace process, we did it in Oslo, it failed. We did it in Hebron, it failed. We did it in Gaza, it failed horribly. You can't keep doing the same things over and over again and expecting a different solution.
Okay, we have done this once. If I'm not mistaken, we had peace with Egypt,
Egypt was
a few years before that,
right.
they killed 3,000 soldiers, if I'm not mistaken,
right.
and we made peace with them.
Because
we left,
they changed,
and it was your right-wing camp that said we should not do it, and we have
agree.
peace, and it's a strategic asset.
Right. And the reason that there's peace, by the way, is because they gave up their ideology to destroy Israel. Abu Mazen wrote his doctorate on Holocaust denial. Hamas is calling to annihilate the Jewish people. There is no comparison between that and the Egyptian country that lost the war horribly and gave up their desire to destroy us.
As a peace activist, they are probably the worst possible partners I could have on the other side.
They're not a partner at all.
This doesn't mean potential. This still doesn't mean that we don't have to set out what our strategic goals are. What do we want to see here in 10, 20 years?
Okay, so
do we want a one-state reality that is not democratic and not Jewish?
So I'll answer the question.
What do we want here?
Okay, I'll answer the question. Again, before we discuss the solution, we have to define the problem. You are defining the problem some political something. I'm not. This is a religious war. And that's not me saying it, that's Hamas saying it. That's the PLO saying it. That's not my statements. In this religious war, the problem is they are trying to destroy Israel and murder Jews. That is the problem. It's not land, it's not politics. And therefore, what I want in the future is I want my people to stop getting killed and terrorized. I want their people, the Arabs, to stop walking into Jewish towns and slaughtering families. I want the people in Gaza to stop voting for a genocidal radical Islamic terrorist organization. This has nothing to do with a political deal.
Yes,
you cannot make deals.
I want world peace and flying ponies as well, but how are you going to get there? What is your solution?
So my solution, again, when we're talking about, for example, the Munich Agreement, which we spoke about just now, everybody wants world peace. If you make peace with people who are evil, that is an immoral thing to do. You must destroy evil because they're trying to kill you.
So what's the solution?
The solution, again, if you want to ask me, the solution is very simple. I do believe, for where I live in Judea and Samaria, by the way, and I have many neighbors who I know for 25 years who are not Israeli and they're Arabs. And we get along fine. We smoke, we drink coffee, we have great times. They hate the PA. Every time we make a deal with their Arab leaders, they suffer. The solution is give those peaceful Arabs who want to live life and not want to push their fabricated national claim called Palestine, give them rights and a reason to live. In terms of terrorists, the only deal with a terrorist is a 5.56 bullet. There is no making peace with people who want to kill you. It's very simple. You don't make peace with someone who comes into your house and tries to kill your family. You kill them or kick them out. And again, we're not talking about the Arabs or all the Muslims. We're talking about people who have an ideology to kill you.
Okay, so as I said, there are many examples in the world of peace agreements after violent conflict.
Not after.
We have some
Give me one
experience with
example.
this
You know,
ourselves.
I'll give up. Give me one example of a conflict where one side that's going to destroy the other side did not give up their ideology of destruction in this
Of course
peace.
they will have to give up their ideology.
But they don't.
Of course they will have to give up their ideology of destruction.
Okay.
In the meantime, reaching ceasefires is possible. I'm just saying, don't do it tactically. Do it strategically.
Okay.
Change the situation, reach long-term quiet.
Okay.
The reason we're not doing it today, even though this would be the recommendation of the security apparatus, is because our leaders are too scared of appearing as lefties.
Okay.
That's the only reason.
I really have to tell you again, 12 years, they're not scared. Let me ask you a question. You make a ceasefire with Hamas.
It's true that for 10 years, Netanyahu has been in power and could not deliver.
You make a ceasefire with Gaza. When that ceasefire happens, did they change their feelings? Did they change their thoughts, their ideas?
No, of course
No, so one second. So what's happening in this ceasefire is right now they're not firing missiles, but they're amping up their weaponry. Why is that smart? To give them time out to allow them to re-amp. Why is that a smart thing to do?
It's no time out. They're not allowed to build up their power. We have things that we can do
They've been bringing
against it.
Tens of thousands of missiles in over the last 12 years. What are you talking about? We still have 2 soldiers in Gaza. Do we know where they are?
Again, as I said, the situation is very complicated.
What's
Hamas is an enemy. What I'm saying is that we have some tools.
Okay, before we begin speaking about the next subject here, I want to give you a little bit of an introduction. A little while ago, the government of Israel tried to pass a law that the power to declare war would be in the hands of the Prime Minister and the Minister of Defense. Of course, everyone got into a very, very nervous wreck about it, and one of the things that came out was the former head of the Mossad, Tamir Pardo, went on TV or went into some kind of a journalist forum and said that several years ago, Netanyahu was talking about attacking Iran and went to him and said, give us some operatives and how to do it. And he got a little bit nervous and went to different people in the state to find out what he should do. At the end of the day, again, according to his statements, nothing's publicized except from him, is that the security apparatus convinced Netanyahu not to attack. Again, there's no way to confirm this except from his mouth to the journalism, but this is what happened recently. I think that Netanyahu has proved, certainly during the this past Gaza incident, that he's fully in self-control and is not looking for war, and this was just a call, I think, to, if God forbid something would happen in emergency, that he has the power to actually declare war. And I'd be happy to get your take on this, Tamir.
Well, I think, first of all, preferably, we would not want to have a clear understanding of what are the legal mechanisms through which you declare war. I'm happy they walked back this decision of having just the Prime Minister and the Defense Minister going into an act of war. I think that also what Tamir Pardo is talking about, this is also not something that would be considered an extreme circumstance, so this isn't even relevant, I think, to this issue. It's clear that for such an attack, today, after the Amidror committee recommendations were accepted, it's clear that the cabinet would have to agree and to authorize such an attack, and I think this is the right thing to do. You need to have more people at the table, and you need to get to the right decision.
Right, the decision was retracted, I believe, correct? So yeah. I don't think this is real, but the question is the ideology or the philosophy behind that decision. Again, I think that what's going to happen now, certainly tonight, there's a special, exclusive show on this issue. I think what's going to happen now is what's been going on for the last couple of years, that this is going to be like putting Bibi on the target and start firing missiles at him. I think Bibi's proven himself to be very responsible when it comes to these situations. Again, this past Gaza incident, he certainly had advice from the far right, as you call them, to go in and take over Gaza. He proved to be level-headed. Again, I certainly don't understand the ceasefire, but that's what he did. So I don't think that there's anyone really worried, honestly, that Netanyahu is going to go crazy. I think that he's proven himself for, I don't know how long he's been in government and security, for most of his life, that he's not going to do that. But I do think that the issue is that in America, for example, the commander-in-chief is the president, and he has full power over everything, including the nuclear keys to whatever they have to do. So I don't think it's such a big deal. And again, if it was someone who we know is lack of self-control, I'd be nervous. I'm not really nervous about Benjamin Netanyahu. And by the way, I didn't vote Likud, so be clear. But I say many times, I'm happy he's in the driver's seat. I think the ways has to be a little bit towards the right to make sure he goes in the right direction. But I don't think there's any, I don't know what you think about that. I don't think he's out of control. I mean, I don't know.
Well, actually, I think that the problem is that we are making this also all about Netanyahu. And I'm saying it's pretty clear that the left is also doing this. But I think this question goes beyond Netanyahu. Do we want the Prime Minister in Israel to have this kind of authority?
So that's definitely a political question. 100%.
It's a political question. My personal take is that having the cabinet authorize acts that would lead to war is sensible, and there's a lot of wisdom in it. I think this is the right thing to do. I'm glad they retracted on this issue. And as far as if Netanyahu is safe on the driver's seat, I mean, I feel that sometimes the fact that he is, Netanyahu politically, I think that he's very constrained. He understands that going into war will also can cause him a political downfall. We had quite a few prime ministers
all from the left, by the way.
Yeah, not necessarily. Menachem Begin, you could say.
Menachem Begin made peace, didn't go to war.
Menachem Begin went to the first Lebanon war.
In 1982, but he was also peace,
yeah,
right?
But he also made peace. But he went to that war, and that war was probably also his downfall politically. So I think he's constrained. I don't know if it's for the right reasons, but he's constrained, and for that reason, I think that in some cases that's a good thing.
I want to talk about this, Tamir Pardo, for a second. Do you think it's okay? I mean, I have a problem with someone who's the head of the Mossad going privately is okay, but a public forum to come out tonight, head of the Mossad giving security conversations that were behind closed doors to opening up to the public, I think that's a very dangerous precedent to set for the country. I think it's very dangerous. I don't know why he would do that. I think he, again, unless it's a political move, I can't tell you what he's going to do. I wouldn't be surprised if he starts running with the Labour Party later on. But I think that's something that shouldn't be accepted. I think that there should be some gag orders on closed-door discussions when it comes to war and security.
Yeah, I think so. I think there are. I mean, if it's going to be aired tonight, it probably passed the censorship. This information was also not new. It was uncovered a few years ago. I think that the heads of the military apparatus blocked this move by Netanyahu. As far as his motivations, I don't know. He strikes me as someone who does really care about this country. He spent his life in Israeli security.
Talking about Netanyahu?
No, I'm talking about Amir Pardo now. Netanyahu as well, by the way. I think that he also really cares about this place. I think he's wrong and that he's politically cowardly. I'm not politically cowardly. I'm not questioning his basic motivations. But going back to Pardo, yes, I think he spent a lifetime ensuring the security of Israel. He really cares about the country and its security, and I think that's the reason he felt that he had to speak out.
So I'm interested in going back to what you just said. Why can you explain to me why you think Netanyahu is cowardly?
I think that we've seen in many cases that Netanyahu, while in many cases, by the way, I think we should applaud him for many things that he has done and his stature in the international community. But in many cases, when he's back against the wall politically, he in a very cowardly way backs off.
Can you give me an example? I'm really trying to understand what we're talking about here.
Well, an example would be the agreement that was struck with the UN a few months ago about deporting. So we're finishing with a good word, and a good word to finish this panel. I want to say that things were heated here, but I had a really good time, and we talked behind the scenes. It was really great to meet you.
It was fantastic having you here, and I just want to say something that really made me feel good. While the South is getting bombarded by Hamas in Gaza, I decided to take my car and travel down and show some support to the people, the soldiers, and the kids living down there. And as I traveled around Jerusalem, we had bakeries that were just throwing cakes into my car, and I spent the day down in the South by the towns that are being bombarded, just bring smiles to people's faces. It was wonderful to see the amount of support. Also Israelis, but people from overseas as well were giving the people in the South, and that's what keeps us going. And we've come to the end of another Israeli Frenemies show. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to share us out on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We'll see you next week from here, Tel Aviv, Israel. God bless, and take care, everyone.